We like to think we're special. It's a very human thing to do. We look at our cities, our art, our technology, and we see a story of progress, a story of destiny. We see evolution as a ladder, and we're standing on the top rung looking down. The story goes like this: life started simple, then it got more complex, then it got smarter, and finally, it produced us. It was all leading to this, to us. But what if that story is wrong? What if we're not the pinnacle of some grand design? What if we are just a fluke? A beautiful, strange, and incredibly lucky accident? What if our existence is the result of a long chain of cosmic and biological coincidences, any one of which could have gone the other way? If you could rewind the tape of life and play it again, would something like us ever appear? The answer, according to many who study our deep past, is a pretty resounding no. Our survival and our rise to dominance looks less like an inevitable outcome and more like a winning lottery ticket. To understand why, you have to stop looking at evolution as a straight line. It's not a march of progress. It's a messy branching bush, and for most of history, our branch was just one tiny twig among millions of others. Many, many times, that twig was almost snapped. Let's start with the big one. The event that made our world possible, go back 66 million years, the planet didn't belong to us. It didn't even belong to our ancestors. The world belonged to the dinosaurs. They had been in charge for over 150 million years. They were an incredible evolutionary success story. They filled every corner of the planet, from giant herbivores to terrifying predators. And scurrying around in the shadows, trying not to get stepped on, were our ancestors. They were small, furry, rodent-like mammals. They were not destined for greatness. They were survivalists living in the cracks of a world owned by giants. Then, one day, the sky fell. A rock the size of a mountain, traveling faster than a speeding bullet, slammed into the planet in what is now the Gulf of Mexico. The impact was beyond anything we can truly imagine. It triggered earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions across the globe. It threw so much dust and debris into the atmosphere that it blocked out the sun for years. The planet went dark and cold. Plants died. The herbivores that ate the plants died. And the carnivores that ate the herbivores died. The reign of the dinosaurs was over, not because of a failure in their evolution, but because of a random act of cosmic violence. It was a planetary reset button. This was not inevitable, it was just a thing that happened. A piece of space debris on a collision course with Earth. If that asteroid had been on a slightly different path, if it had missed our planet, the dinosaurs would likely still be here. Mammals would probably still be small creatures scurrying in the undergrowth. There would be no primates, no apes, and certainly no humans. Our entire existence is built on the foundation of a mass extinction event caused by a stray asteroid. It's the ultimate example of being in the right place at the right time, or rather of our competitors being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was a fluke of astronomy. So the dinosaurs were gone. This opened up the world. Mammals, who were better able to survive the long dark winter, began to thrive. They diversified, they grew larger, they filled the empty niches left by the dinosaurs. And among these mammals, a new group emerged: the primates, our distant cousins. They took to the trees, developing grasping hands and forward-facing eyes, great for judging distances as they leaped from branch to branch. For millions of years, this was the story: primates living in lush forests. But the planet wasn't done throwing curveballs. The climate began to change. Africa, the cradle of our lineage, started to dry out. The vast forests began to shrink, replaced by open grasslands, the savanna. This was another major crisis. For a creature adapted to life in the trees, a world with fewer trees is a disaster. Many primate species went extinct. They couldn't adapt. Their branch of the evolutionary bush was trimmed. But one group of apes was pushed in a new direction. With trees few and far between, they were forced to spend more time on the ground, traveling between patches of forest. And it was here that another crucial and frankly weird adaptation started to take hold: walking on two legs. Bipedalism is strange. It makes us slow. It makes us unstable. A fall can be catastrophic. It puts incredible strain on our backs and our feet. So why did we do it? There are lots of theories. Maybe it freed up our hands to carry food or tools. Maybe it helped us see over the tall grass to spot predators. Maybe it was more energy efficient for covering long distances. Whatever the reason, it was a huge gamble. For a long time, our early ancestors, the Australopithecines, were creatures of two worlds. They could walk on two legs, but they still had long arms and curved fingers for climbing trees. They were awkward on the ground and less skilled in the trees. They were masters of neither. It was a risky transitional phase, another moment where things could have easily gone wrong. If the predators had been slightly more effective or the food slightly scarcer, this weird two-legged ape experiment could have ended right there. But it didn't. And freeing the hands turned out to be a game changer. It set the stage for the next great Fluke, the tool making brains. Once our hands weren't needed for walking, they could specialize. They could manipulate objects with incredible precision. They could chip stones to create sharp edges. This was the dawn of technology. At the same time, our brains started to get bigger. A lot bigger. This is one of the biggest mysteries in human evolution. A big brain is an incredibly expensive organ. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it uses over 20% of your energy. It's a gas guzzler. For an infant, it's even more extreme, demanding over half of their daily calories. In a world where starvation is a constant threat, evolving such a costly piece of hardware is a massive evolutionary risk. It's not a clear win. It also created a serious plumbing problem. A bigger brain means a bigger head. But walking upright requires a narrow pelvis. This creates a terrible conflict during childbirth. Human birth is uniquely dangerous and painful compared to other primates. For thousands of years, it was a leading cause of death for women and infants. Evolution had to find a messy compromise. Our babies are born ridiculously premature. A human baby is completely helpless. Its brain is underdeveloped. It can't walk, it can't cling to its mother, it can't do much of anything except cry and eat. This long period of infant dependency is a huge burden. It requires constant care, not just from the mother, but from a whole social group. So, the big brain wasn't an obvious upgrade. It was a package deal with a lot of downsides. It required a specific set of circumstances to pay off. We needed a diet rich enough in calories, particularly meat and fat, to fuel it. Our tool use helped with that, allowing us to scavenge carcasses and hunt. We needed a social structure that could protect our helpless infants and support nursing mothers. We had to become hyper-cooperative. Any number of factors could have made the big brain a failed experiment, an evolutionary dead end. A species that starved because of its greedy brain, or that couldn't reproduce safely, or that couldn't protect its vulnerable young. The fact that it worked out for us seems, again, like a stroke of incredible luck. And for a long, long time, we weren't alone. It's easy to look back now and see a single line of human evolution leading directly to us, Homo sapiens. But that's just not what the fossil record shows. The reality is that for most of our history, the planet was home to multiple species of humans. It was a crowded house. There were the Neanderthals in Europe and Asia, strong, intelligent, and well adapted to the cold. They had brains as large as ours, if not larger. They had culture, they buried their dead, they made tools, and they likely had some form of language. There were the Denisovans in Asia, a mysterious group we know mostly from a few fragments of bone and teeth. There was the tiny Homo floresiensis in Indonesia, sometimes called the Hobbit. And there were likely others we haven't even discovered yet. The world of 100,000 years ago was not a world with one human species. It was a world with at least 4 or 5. We all shared a common ancestor, but we had taken different evolutionary paths. And we met. We know from genetic evidence that our Homo sapiens ancestors interbred with Neanderthals and Denisovans. Parts of their DNA live on inside many of us today, but we also competed with them. We were all hunting the same animals and gathering the same plants. Why did we survive while they vanished? Was it that we were smarter? Maybe, but the evidence for Neanderthal intelligence is growing all the time. And was it that we were more violent and wiped them out? It's possible, but hard to prove. Maybe we had slightly better technology, like projectile weapons such as spears and throwing sticks. That gave us an edge. Maybe we had more complex language, which allowed for better cooperation and planning in larger groups. Or maybe we were just better at adapting to rapidly changing climates, or maybe it was something else. Maybe we just had a slightly higher birth rate. Maybe our social networks were a little bit larger. Or maybe we just got lucky. A disease could have swept through the Neanderthal population that we were resistant to. A key food source they relied on could have disappeared. The truth is, we don't know for sure why we are the last humans standing. But it was not a guaranteed victory. For tens of thousands of years, we shared the planet with our cousins. Then they were gone. Their extinction is a quiet reminder that survival, even for a smart tool-using hominin, is never a given. We are the sole survivors of a once diverse human family. Another fluke. Even our own survival as a species was on a knife's edge. Around 74,000 years ago, a supervolcano called Toba in what is now Indonesia erupted. It was the largest eruption in the last 2.5 million years. It plunged the planet into a volcanic winter that may have lasted for a decade, followed by a 1,000-year-long cold snap. The ash blotted out the sun, killing plants and animals on a massive scale. According to one theory, the Toba catastrophe pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. Genetic studies suggest that at some point in our past, the human population crashed. We went through a bottleneck. There may have been only a few thousand individuals left alive. Maybe 10,000, maybe as few as 1,000. An entire species reduced to the population of a small town. Think about how fragile that is. One more disaster, one bad winter, one new disease, and we would have been gone. So wiped out. The world would have moved on without us. The Neanderthals might have eventually repopulated the planet. Or maybe another species entirely, but the story of Homo sapiens would have ended there in the ash of a volcanic eruption. Our survival was not guaranteed. It depended on a small, desperate group of people clinging to life against all odds. So when you pile it all up, the story starts to look less like a destiny and more like a series of fortunate events. A random asteroid clears the board. A changing climate in a specific part of the world forces a weird ape onto two legs. This frees up the hands, which, in a feedback loop with a dangerously expensive brain, leads to tool use. This new kind of creature manages to survive despite the immense risks of its own biology. And then, after competing with several other versions of itself, this creature survives a planetary cataclysm that nearly wipes it out. This is not a story of a master species marching to its throne. This is a story of a survivor. A lucky one. But is it all just luck? Is there nothing special about us that made our success more likely? That's the other side of the coin. While the opportunities might have been flukes, the way we seized them was not. There are a few things that, once they evolved, made us incredibly good at the game of survival. The first is our almost supernatural adaptability. Most animals are specialists. A polar bear is perfectly adapted to the Arctic. It has thick fur, a layer of blubber, and it's a master at hunting seals on the ice. But take it out of the Arctic and put it in a desert, and it will die. It is a brilliant piece of engineering for one specific environment. We are the opposite. We are generalists. We are born with almost no built-in survival tools. We don't have claws or thick hides or venom. We can't outrun a cheetah or outmuscle a gorilla. On a physical level, we are quite pathetic, but we have a general-purpose problem-solving machine inside our skulls. We don't need to evolve fur. We can wear the fur of another animal or weave clothes from plants. We don't need to be able to digest a certain poisonous plant. We can learn to cook it and make it safe. We live in the Arctic and the desert. We live on mountains and in rainforests. We even live in space, an environment more hostile than any on Earth. We do this not by changing our bodies, but by changing our behavior and our technology. Our key adaptation is the ability to adapt. This makes us incredibly resilient. When the climate changes or a food source disappears, we don't have to wait for generations of natural selection to catch up. We can invent a new solution. This is a huge advantage. The second, and perhaps most important, is our capacity for cooperation. We are social animals, but so are many species. What makes us different is the scale and flexibility of our cooperation. We can cooperate with huge numbers of individuals, even people we have never met. A colony of ants can have millions of individuals, and they cooperate flawlessly. But they do it rigidly. Their behavior is programmed by their genetics. They can't wake up one morning and decide to overthrow the queen and establish a democracy. Humans can. Our cooperation is based on shared stories, myths, and ideas. We can form a tribe, a religion, a corporation, or a nation based on a common belief. We can agree that a piece of paper has value, or that a certain set of laws should be followed. These shared fictions allow us to work together on a scale that is unprecedented in the natural world. It allows for specialization. Not everyone needs to know how to hunt, or how to make a tool, or how to find medicinal plants. We can have experts who do these things, and they can share their knowledge with the group. This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle: language and culture. A cat has to learn how to hunt by watching its mother. Everything it learns dies with it. The next generation of cats has to start from scratch, while humans don't. Our complex language allows us to transmit vast amounts of information from one person to another, and from one generation to the next. I can learn from the mistakes of my ancestors who lived thousands of years ago just by reading a book. This is a second system of inheritance layered on top of our genetics. It's called culture, and it moves at lightning speed compared to biological evolution. Our culture creates a cumulative effect. One person invents a better spear. The next generation improves on it. The next learns to attach it to a stick. The next learns to fletch it with feathers for better flight. This collective accumulating knowledge is what allowed us to go from chipping stones to building spacecraft in a relatively short period of time. It's the ultimate feedback loop. Our big brains gave us language, and language allowed us to build a shared pool of knowledge that made our brains even more effective. So maybe the story is more complicated. The universe threw a series of random events at this planet: an asteroid, an ice age, a volcanic eruption. These were the flukes. These were the moments of pure chance that created openings, that presented challenges, that winnowed down the field. They set the stage. But once the stage was set, a creature with our unique combination of traits, adaptability, large-scale cooperation, and cumulative culture was perfectly positioned to take it over. We weren't destined to be here, but we were uniquely equipped to thrive in the chaotic world that chance created. The real trap is hindsight bias. We look back from the present, knowing we survived, and we construct a narrative that makes it seem inevitable. We connect the dots in a way that leads directly to us, but we forget to look at all the other dots, all the other paths not taken, all the other species that are no longer here. We forget the sheer improbability of it all. Our existence is a paradox. It is the result of both dumb luck and a remarkable set of abilities. We are simultaneously an accident and, once the accident happened, a force of nature. We are a fragile twig on the tree of life that somehow managed to not get broken and then grew to overshadow the whole tree. Thinking this way should make us arrogant. It should do the opposite. It should make us humble. We are not the appointed rulers of this planet. We are the unlikely survivors. We won a lottery, and we have been spending the winnings with little thought for the future. The same adaptability and ingenuity that allowed us to survive ice ages and supervolcanoes has now given us the power to change the planet's climate ourselves, to trigger our own mass extinction. The story of our survival is not over. We are still in the middle of it, and knowing how much of a fluke our past has been, how many times our story almost ended, makes our present all the more precarious and our future all the more precious. We are the product of a million happy accidents. The question now is whether we are smart enough to not let our success be the thing that finally dooms us. We are the only ones left to tell the story, and we are the only ones who get to decide how it ends.